Well, this article came out in Science Alert this week.
Okay.
Holdout humans, a chilling glimpse into our future if we survive another million years.
Okay.
Do you
We
see us
won't.
getting
So
that?
good news. Good news, we won't. Narrator voice, we won't.
This is by, and it's funny because it sounds like it should be Andy Sandberg, but his name is Anders Sandberg, who I imagine is like some like Scandinavian researcher.
The Scandinavian
journalist?
Andy Sandberg.
Anders Sandberg.
Anders Sandberg.
So he says that most species are transitioning. Who is Anders Sandberg before we take his opinion to heart? Anders Sandberg is a James Martin Research Fellow, Future of Humanity Institute at Oxford Martin School, University of Oxford. So he's a bloody smarty pants at Oxford University. Most species are transitionary. They go extinct, branch into new species, or change over time due to random mutations and shifts. A typical mammalian species can expect it to exist for about 1 million years.
Mm-hmm.
So modern humans, Homo sapiens, have been around for...
I believe, if the Bible has not lied to me, about 2,000 years.
That's correct. Times that by about 300,000 years. So what will happen if we make it to 1 million years? Science fiction author H.G. Wells was the first one to realize that humans could evolve into something very alien. In his 1883 essay, Man in the Year Million, he envisioned what's now become a cliche. Big brains, tiny bodies. Later, he speculated that humans could also split into 2 or more new species. While Wells's evolutionary models have not stood the test of time, the 3 basic options he considered still hold true. We'll either go extinct, we'll turn into several species, or we'll change. What's your money on, Will?
Extinct.
I reckon we'll change. Add in the ingredients that we have biotechnology that could greatly increase the probability of each of them. Well, isn't that good? Like, we're not working on a solution. We're working on one that could just lead to one of these 3 outcomes, including extinction. Foreseeable future technologies such as human enhancement, which is making ourselves smarter, stronger, or in other ways better using drugs, microchips, genetics, or technology. There's also brain emulation, which is uploading our consciousness to computers, or AI, which may produce technological forms of new species not seen in biology. It's impossible to predict the future perfectly, Will.
Yeah, no shit.
Says Anders.
Says Anders. Says Captain Obvious Anders Sandberg.
It depends on fundamentally random factors, ideas, and actions, as well as currently known technological and biological limits. But it is my job as Anders Sandberg, not the comedian from the hilarious group Lonely Island, that I think most likely the case is vast speciation, when a species splits into several others. There are many among us who want to improve the human condition, slowing and abolishing aging, enhancing intelligence and mood, and changing bodies, potentially leading to a new species. These visions, however, leave many cold. How do you feel about specifying?
Cold, yeah.
Okay.
So this is, Elon Musk has announced this week that his
Neuralink,
the chip in the head might be available as soon as next year. Although I think we're meant to be living on Mars in 3 years, according to his plans as well. And also Twitter's probably still going to be in business. He says a lot of things. Elon Musk is my point, but he did say he was going to put one of those chips in his own brain. So this is, there are so many rich people who are trying to hack the future, particularly because rich people want to live forever because life's good for rich people. And of course they want to keep living. But I don't know how realistic these things are. I think that AI seems to be a little bit more realistic than people who are just going to biohack themselves. But I think that extinction is the most likely of the scenarios. So I'm going to say cold, and then freezing cold, and then boiling hot.
It is plausible that even if these technologies become as cheap and ubiquitous as mobile phones, some people refuse them on principle and build their self-image on being normal humans. In the long run, we should expect the most enhanced people, generation by generation, or upgrade after upgrade, to become one or more fundamentally different post-human species, and a species of holdouts declaring themselves as real humans. Do you think you have any moral superiority in this human 2.0 world? If you are authentically 100% human, do you hold any moral superiority?
Oh, I think there'd be some people who think that they are morally superior, but the majority of people who aren't interconnected aren't doing it for reasons of moral superiority. It's the huge percentage of the human population that are just too poor. Like, it's a very first world thing that we're talking about here. There are huge parts of like, you know, the developing world that aren't connected to technology because that technology isn't available, and they don't have the funding or the resource or the power or any of those sort of things that would connect them to these things. So the majority of the population is still not going to be hooked up to this futurism. It's only going to be the richest parts of it. The thing that I find the most interesting is that there used to be this idea that you had to make something to be, you know, immortal. There was this idea that, you know, if you made art or built a bridge or a building or like, you know, created something, that was the way that you could live on. Whereas now, like, everyone can be famous. You know, everyone can broadcast, everyone can record their life. It can live on forever. Whether anyone would be interested in, you know, looking back over your Instagram feed or like, you know, whatever you recorded or whatever is a different thing. But even just with us in the podcast, like, I was talking to an Australian, you know, guy who works in this area, and they've been working on being able to, one of the things they did was came up with this, basically like an AI where somebody could have a conversation with their dead grandmother, right? And it was just kind of programmed with like things that that person had said, and then the program runs it so that you could actually literally have a conversation with them. But clearly, the more information they have about how someone would answer a question or like the way that they would speak, the more likely it is to be able to use that algorithm. Like, we've already done like 1,000 hours of podcasting. We've answered every question in every way, and you could get a realistic sense of, you know, who we are and how. So it's beyond even our control now. If somebody after we died wanted to reanimate us in the form of AI, there is already enough information that we've provided them that is available that we would not get a choice in that.
I just finished the first volume of a science fiction series called We Are Legion, We Are Bob. It's like a science fiction series about a guy who has his he's like a Silicon Valley billionaire who sells his business and then uses that money to kind of, invest in this cryogenics company, you know, speculatively having his conscious uploaded. And then fast forward to 150 years later, and the world's gone to shit. And he's had his consciousness selected because of his qualifications to be sent out into outer space to find a new habitable planet. And so it's all from this AI's perspective. And what this AI does, when he gets into outer space, is he starts replicating, because he's got to create versions of himself to go out and explore, looking for different habitable planets. But it is interesting, this idea of what that would, they have enough data about his life that they've uploaded his consciousness, but then the more he duplicates, even though they're coming from the same origin, those versions of himself become different. And it's interesting because the books will jump around from chapter to chapter, and you're being narrated by different versions of himself. So there's elements of the personality that are the same, but then slight variations. And one of the discussions they have is whether or not emotions are useful, because when he's first reanimated, they have his emotions turned off, because it's like, well, you don't need to feel grief about the family that you've lost or the existential dread about what's to come. But then he has the option later on of, like, you know, emulating adrenaline hits and different kinds of like cortisone and all that, or not cortisone, like dopamine, all that kind of stuff, which he turns on. And it makes his life a living fucking hell, at least in the short term. And so he starts like turning the emotions off again. Like when he has to, like, you know, when he's making sort of rational decisions, he just like turns the emotions off. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating, but it also sounds like, I mean, I think that there's now enough of us out there, technological wise, that even if you step back from it, the only, like, you know, in Europe, they have that thing, the right to be forgotten, you know, that you can get your information as much as possible scrubbed from the internet. But I think there's so much of a digital pattern of most of the people who've been online now that even if you stopped using it now, if you stepped away, the only way you could really be free of it being used, you know, to profile you going forward is that if you've never been on it.
Yeah. It's weird when you can't find someone online now. Like, you might, you know, like you're saying a couple of weeks ago, you know, you found that old email and you're like, oh, I'm going to look that person up. And that's why the J mystery got to me, because it's like, how did this dude disappear with no digital footprint. Like, and he was in a big famous pop star, but I guess it's kind of like they came and went before the advent of social media. That's what saved Jay. That's what's kept Jay okay.
It would be great if it was revealed that Jay was behind the Right to Be Forgotten project. That he'd been investing all his time and the money that he made from being in Five to like just make sure that he could have no digital footprint.
Anders Sandberg continues, through brain emulation, a speculative technology where one scans a brain at a cellular level, then reconstructs an equivalent neural network in a computer to create software intelligence, which is a term. This is not mere speculation. It is leaving the animal kingdom for a mineral, or rather a software kingdom. There are many reasons some might want to do this, such as boosting their chances of immortality by creating copies and backups, just like that book I've just read, or by easy travel or internet, or by easy travel by internet or by radio in space. Software intelligence has other advantages too. It can be more resource efficient. A virtual being only needs energy from sunlight and some rock material to make microchips. Oh yeah, but the sun doesn't always shine. Well, if you want to be,
how's it going to bloody work? How are you going to be super intelligent at night? How about
that? It can also think and change on time scales set by computation, a million times faster than the biological minds, blah, blah, blah. Yet humanity is probably more unlikely to remain the sole intelligent species on the planet. Artificial intelligence is advancing so rapidly now, while there are profound uncertainties and disagreements about whether or not it becomes conscious. Artificial intelligence, meaning it can understand or learn any intellectual problems like a human rather than specializing on niche tasks, will arrive. A sizable fraction of experts think it's possible within this century or sooner. If it can happen, it probably will. At some point, we are likely to have a planet where humans have largely been replaced by software intelligence or AI, or a combination of the two. Do you reckon they have wars? Do you reckon so people have uploaded their consciousnesses, take on the AIs who have been, they had no human origins. They've just been created by the inorganic origins of AI.
So the offline people have a war against the online people, basically, is what you're saying. The AI, because I mean, are you talking about the consciousness? Like, are you talking about computers just running AI programs, or are you talking about literally
there's no biological beings left. There's no original humans. It's just people who uploaded their consciousnesses to, whatever server there is, plus AI who were never human. They were just generated from the birth of AI.
Day one, AI erases the other people from the...
It takes 2 seconds.
I mean,
they just change our passwords.
That's it. None of us can log in. I mean, the amount that humans already argue online and waste time online. When we become totally online, we are going to be insufferable. Day one, the AI are like, "Nah, we're done with this bullshit. Change your passwords. You're all locked out." End of civilization does not come with a bang. It comes with somebody just changing a password.
To see the full video, join our Patreon.
Patreon.com/Tofop.